is up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Gary's Basement, your new go-to stop for everything hockey. So, since this is the first episode, let me give you a little intro, or better yet, I'm going to let the boys introduce themselves.
All right, my name's Jeremiah. I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan, and a stats nerd and love hockey. So, yeah.
All right, I'm Levi. I'm a Minnesota Wild fan, hockey enthusiast. Love to watch hockey. Love the action, how fast-paced it is. Just the best sport all around.
Yo, what's up, guys? I'm Micah. I'm a Penguins fan, and although it's been a struggle the past couple years, unlike a lot of Penguins fans, I'm gonna stick it out, and we still have the best player in all of hockey. So,
Cap.
Got it whole day.
I'm Luke. I'm also a Minnesota Wild fan. Grew up loving hockey, still do to this day, and love talking about it too. So.
All right. Lastly, I'm Nathaniel, Big Nate, whatever. But I'm a Boston fan. Grew up a Boston fan. My dad's a Boston fan. It's a long story how I became that. But played hockey since I was, I think, 6 or 7. Just love it. Greatest game on earth. So anyway, let's get into it.
So, for the second straight year, the Edmonton Oilers will be facing off against the Florida Panthers. So, we're going to break down that series, our predictions, everything you need to know. We're going to start with the keys to the series, what we think the major takeaways will be that will make or break the series. So,
And I mean, I think it's so obvious to see that one of the biggest things in the series is by far the goaltending. Stuart Skinner hasn't been very consistent this playoffs. He's got 3 shutouts this playoffs, but he has played 10 of the possible 16 games for the Edmonton Oilers due to Pickard playing instead of him because of some abysmal games. He's got a 253 goals against average, and a 904 save percentage, so looking really good. But Bobrovsky, on the other hand, all 17 games for the Panthers, 12 wins, 3 shutouts, 211 goals against average, and a very, very healthy 912 save percentage. And you have to hope, if you're an Edmonton fan, that Stuart Skinner can keep his success from the Dallas series going into this Stanley Cup final. Because he was great in that Dallas series.
yeah, the first 2 rounds were really tough for Skinner. He only played the first 2 games in LA, lost both of them, and then they won 4 straight without him. And then only played a few games in round 2. Dallas was his first full series that he was able to really start to look a little bit comfortable. And overall, he's still got a decent goals against average because of those shutouts and save percentage because of those shutouts. So depending on the Stuart Skinner you get, that can be a huge factor for the Cup final.
I mean, without saying, the Florida Panthers this year have an average of, 3.03, if I'm getting the stats right, goals for per game, and the Oilers have 3.16 goals for per game. I'm getting a couple different stats. It also said 4.04. Well, whichever one is true, these are some pretty heavy offensive teams. I mean, Florida has one of the most, or if not the best lineup in the NHL. They can hit, they can score, they can do just about everything. So, I'm just excited to see this series again. I don't know if it's going to be any different result, but either way, it's going to be a fun one.
yeah, obviously getting to predictions at the later on during this podcast, but piggybacking off of what Nathaniel just said, I don't see a difference happening in this year. The Panthers, for instance, going deeper into what the Panthers have, Bobrovsky's a really good goaltender. He has his days where he can be beat. His glove side is very weak overall, but yeah, that save percentage makes up for it. Generally speaking, he's a good goaltender. And then on the other side, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of weakness with Stuart Skinner. and a lot of room for improvement if he continues to be a starting goaltender for the Oilers. Yes, he's had his good games. Man, the 3 shutouts he had, really good hockey. Really good goaltender. But there is a lot of levels of weakness that Stuart Skinner has to change, and he's going to need to do that because this game went 7. This series went 7 games last year, and unless Stuart Skinner is as good or really better than he was last year, um, the Oilers are not going to have a chance in this series. Obviously, we've got other things to talk about that really give the Oilers a chance still in the series. It's not all about goaltending, but those are some big takeaways for sure.
And that's something I'll definitely say with Bobrovsky. One of high blocker and high glove were so far in this playoffs his goals are let up the most high blocker, high glove, and 5-hole. And I think the way the Edmonton offense was moving in the Dallas series, pretty much this whole playoffs, very high-powered offense. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, 2 players that can rip it. So if that top side's not covered, I think Edmonton will make Bobrovsky pay.
I don't know. I haven't checked. Is Zach Hyman out?
Zach Hyman's out for the rest of the series and the season. And so one of the things for the Oilers is definitely going to be Jeff Skinner. He had his first career playoff game this postseason in Game 1 of their first round, and then he was benched up until the final game of the Dallas series, and he really has not had a chance to show his potential yet. Obviously, we're getting off track here, not really talking about the goaltenders, but yeah, he's going to need to step up because Zach Hyman is a big piece that Edmonton will be missing for the remainder of their postseason journey here.
Another thing on the players' standpoint. I mean, as a Bruins fan, I've seen Trent Frederick. He plays mediocre a large amount of the time, but he can step up. He has talent. He has skill. And he just needs to get going, honestly, because he can score from in front of the net. And if you don't have a guy solidified in front of the net like Hyman, where I think, I forget the percentage from last year, but the majority of his goals were scored from within 10 feet of the crease. And so he's a key part of their offense, and he's definitely going to be missed.
Overall, if you're on a line with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, you are in a good spot. They always do that for their team. Facilitators, goal scorers on that line.
I mean, not to discredit Florida. I mean, you do have arguably the 2 best offensive players in the NHL. I mean, forgetting Kucherov and McKinnon. But, I mean, Florida, incredible offensively. And I know I'm going to say it again, Bruins fan. Yeah, but Brad Marchand has really revolutionized their third line. Playing with Lundell and Luosterainen, he has made that line able to score. And, I mean, they put him at first, I think, up with Bennett's line. And, I mean, they were good.
Yeah.
But once they spread out the talent, it just did so much for the depth. Like, they can score anytime.
Yeah. Just a crazy stat to start off this next part in regards to the detail of home ice. Both these teams did not start any of their series at home. They have been road warriors. They have been really good.
Yeah, I think for the regular season stats, the Oilers were pretty even across home and away. Their record was almost an even split: 25 wins on the at home, 23 wins on the road. So for their winning record, the wins were coming on both home and away. For Florida, they had more of their wins coming on home ice and then less away. But then that all changes in the playoffs as well. I think home ice will definitely favor the Oilers in this Cup final. I think last year, especially after going down 3-0, that was already a tall task. But having to come back and then go back to Florida for a Game 7 was just too much to handle for the Oilers. And I think this playoffs they have lost one game at home. Even amount of wins and losses, even amount of wins at home and away. Um, but they've looked really good at home ice, and I think overall, the game 4 games in Edmonton favors Edmonton more than 4 games in Florida would have favored Florida.
And yeah, like you said, highlighting that Florida away record in the playoffs, 8-2 on the road in the playoffs, which is very hard to do, especially in the playoffs. You have playoff atmosphere you're playing against. They had to play against the rowdy Toronto Maple Leafs crowd. Went to 7 games. Not easy to play there, I'm sure. But yeah, the Oilers look strong both ways, and I mean, it's going back to the goalies for a second here. If you see Skinner perform like he did in Dallas, I feel like you can't vote against the Oilers very strongly here.
It's not often we see arguably the greatest player on the planet right now, along with one of the greatest, passers and scorers on the planet, also in Draisaitl, and have them still not really be the favorite.
Yeah.
But I think this series, home ice or away, is going to come down to physicality, because that is what the Florida Panthers have brought in every round so far. And you see a team like the Hurricanes, who have, obviously they don't have as much talent as they did last year, but they're still an incredible team. Their system is amazing, but they don't have those big bodies. They don't have people to stand up when a teammate gets hit. You saw Aho go down that one time, and no one stood up for him. When he took that one shot from Kachuk, no one. They have no one to combat with the physicality. The defensive core alone, Nikola, who is 6'5". You have players like Ekblad, who's also around the same size. You have Kachuk. You have Marchand, even though Marchand's not the biggest boy. But they all can grind. They are incredible. Defensively, offensively, physicality. So yeah,
That's something you need to see from the other lines. If you're not on the scoring line for Edmonton, you have to bring the physicality, you have to bring the energy, you have to keep the energy up, because when Draisaitl and McDavid are out there, your scoring output goes way up. Two of the best offensive players, best offensive duo I would say in the league right now. And I think they will show up. Home ice in Edmonton is always hype. Home ice in Florida, it can get hype in the playoffs, especially. But that's playoff hockey, so you gotta play the same no matter what. And I think whichever team does that will have a big boost there, especially Edmonton, if they can play physical enough.
Yeah.
What do we think, boys? Do we think Edmonton should sign Matt Rumpy for like a couple weeks?
Please no, please no.
That is a whole other thing to talk about, because that's just funny. But in regards to physicality, Edmonton is not the same team that Florida is. Florida has got the big players, and yeah, Florida played a physical hockey game. It's been a long time. I watched a good portion of the playoffs this year. It's been a long time since I've seen the team rely so heavily on the physical game. That's how they forecheck. That's how they won pucks under the back of the net. The Minnesota Wild did that impressively against the Golden Knights, and just obviously they're the Golden Knights, and they had the upper hand in regards to guys like Jack Eichel, Mark Stone. But if the Minnesota Wild can use their forecheck is such a big thing, and it was such a big thing in the playoffs this year, because the teams that won the series, they had the better forecheck, they had the better attacking forwards, and just did a better job at just outplaying. The dump and chase hockey is so big, and has become such a big thing for playoff games. you don't see it as much. Dump and chase is not as big for regular season games. Um, I'm gonna probably step on some toes here, but for one of the great examples of a team that had a good forecheck probably in the first round, and then the second and third rounds kind of just fell off because their physicality was not there. Carolina Hurricanes. Um, their forecheck was not existent in the second round to an extent where they nearly blew their lead in the second round series to Washington. Obviously, they held that series in control for majority of it, won it by a decent margin, and then obviously the Panthers totally outplayed them in the Eastern Conference Final. The Carolina Hurricanes have a lot of outstanding stuff going against them, but their forecheck killed them, and the lack thereof is what got Florida to the final last year. It's what got to Florida to the final this year, and it's the reason that I think they're the better team in regards to the forecheck and attacking play.
Off of what you were saying, yeah, like the physicality difference between Carolina and the Panthers was the difference. It was the difference because they play with a very similar system. Paul Maurice and Rod, very similar system. It's just the way it was executed on the forecheck was so different. And I mean, the Panthers are an incredible team to watch. So fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. Even after all they did to the Bruins, even after all that, even after the heartbreak and hours of laying in my bed staring at the ceiling, after Verhaeghe roofed that one on Swayman, I've accepted that they're good now, and
Having Marchand helps.
yeah, I was so bitter. I was so bitter. Okay, I couldn't even watch a game when Marchand got to the Panthers because I mean, obviously he's been there. He's been on the Bruins forever, and he has been one of consistently my favorite Bruins, even though you guys hated him and probably maybe still do. But I mean, you can't deny the impact the guy makes. He's a great player. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him. I feel like a father. I do. It's
Yeah,
except
that
he's
was
like
definitely
36 years old and I'm 17. But yeah,
that was definitely I would say the biggest move in for the trade deadline. That was, I mean, that clearly helped out the Florida Panthers. That was a very, very big move, especially for what we're talking about physicality right now. He brings that energy to a team that, I mean, that just bolstered it up.
Yeah, I kind of cut out there for a second, but so I don't know what was already said. But I definitely believe that the Oilers have a really good fan base, and I think that will help them in the long run. In the actual season, as I'm sure you guys were talking about, it was pretty even, but I think the Oilers are a better team than they were in the regular season. In the playoffs, I think they just play better. They have something they're going for, and they've been here in this position before, and I think they're ready for round two.
I think we already brought up a lot of the factors, the difference makers, the Skinners, both Skinners on Edmonton, and the physicality and all this different stuff. Um, I think we can go around everyone share kind of who their biggest key player or difference maker they think will have the biggest impact in this series.
Cool. So, as much as I don't want to do it, I'm going to go back to what Nathaniel was saying about Brad Marchand. Love him or hate the guy. Yes, he was the biggest acquisition during the trade deadline, and he has made a difference in the Florida Panthers. He's a good player. I will not deny that, along with all the other stuff that he's done, being a little bit of a brat. Sorry if I had to say it. I had to say it. He he's a good player. He's a playmaker. The goals that he's scored in the postseason this year have been pivotal, and his play, his forecheck, have been impeccable as well. And yeah, I don't care for the guy one bit as a Penguins fan, but game respects game. Brad Marchand is a good player, and he's making a difference. Carter Verhaeghe and Alexander Barkov are my other two breakout players for the Florida Panthers. Barkov and Verhaeghe are both really good playmakers, and they've piggybacked off of each other. That has led to a lot of good goals for both those guys in this series. On the Edmonton side, is it really a question of who the key player is going to be? An angry Connor McDavid, a resentful Connor McDavid, with Leon Draisaitl as his side, is a dangerous weapon in this series. Sidney Crosby lost his first Stanley Cup final that he went to. Next year, he went out, won the Cup, and then got the golden goal for Canada. This past year, Connor McDavid went to the Stanley Cup final, lost it in his first appearance, went out and scored the golden goal for Canada. Will he win the Cup? Will he do the same thing that Crosby did? I think he is perfectly capable of doing that. And in most respects, in regards to the speed that he has, he's better than Crosby in that aspect. I can't agree with the concept of a playmaker and stuff like that, but he is a deadly key player. And I can see that Nathaniel's going to argue with me a little bit, and that's totally fine.
Okay. I love Crosby. Sort of. I'm loving him more now because of his skill. But, I mean, like, actually, I can't.
McDavid is not.
I don't know.
McDavid
It's
is
so hard
faster
to
than
argue
him.
it.
McDavid is faster than him.
But at the same time, you see, like, there was a stretch where Crosby's assists, a large portion of them, and I'm not saying, like, during the beginning of his career, obviously, but, like, were, like, directly to Jake Getzel, and Jake Getzel got a ton of goals off it. And I think
And now
that
that
is
same
what
so
Draisaitl does.
that we're getting a little off topic here because you could open up a whole can of worms on Jake Getzel and the fact that he lives for playmaking teammates. Nikita Kucherov's a great example. Back to the same topic. So the final player that I think is going to be a big part, again, not a player that I really care for all that much, Corey Perry. This is another huge Stanley Cup for him. He's been here a lot of times. If there's one veteran on the Edmonton Oilers that's going to make a massive difference, it's going to be Corey Perry. He made a pretty decent difference last year in the Cup final, and he can do it again. He is still very capable. He's still a very capable player, and I can really see him making an impact. So just in review, Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barkov, and Brad Marchand are my three breakout players for the Florida Panthers. On the Edmonton Oilers side, we got Leon Draisaitl, the German doctor, surgeon out there with his passing. And then you got Connor McDavid, and you got Corey Perry for the Edmonton Oilers. And those are my six players, three head-to-head, that I think are going to make a big impact in the Stanley Cup final.
I'll start with the Florida Panthers just like you did. I think, obviously, goalies, we've gone over goalies. If goalies don't perform, you're not going to play good as a team. But also something, this is my first impact player for the Florida Panthers. Luostarinen could be out. He's on the day-to-day injured list, and that would be a big hit for them. I'm sure they have people to fill that spot, but that would be a big hit to that third line of Lundell and Marchand as well. And then, just like you said, Carter Verhaeghe, that second line is filthy with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. Look to see them put that all together, perform as they should. And then on the Edmonton Oilers side, like you said, angry Connor McDavid. So much fun to watch. But I'm actually going to go with another pick that's another player I don't prefer, but talking about the physicality before, two players in this aspect, Trent Frederick and Evander Kane. Evander Kane needs to step up on that physical end, especially for that offensive output. He can still put up numbers, but they really need him to be that physical kind of guy. Same with Trent Frederick. And then, can't emphasize enough, need Stuart Skinner to have a good series Otherwise, I don't see them winning.
Okay, so for the Oilers, I think Mike is onto something. With with Zach Hyman out, you have Corey Perry. Last year, he made an impact. He was on the fourth line last year, but this year he's getting a chance to play with McDavid and Draisaitl. He's been moved up to the first line, and I mean he is also one of those players. I mean he grinds in front of the net. He had like on the Ducks, he scored an incredible amount of goals. He had a stretch where he had like I keep forgetting. I apologize.
You gotta get him out.
Keep the mic to my mouth. I will remember eventually. But he had a stretch where he was scoring like 40, 50 goals a year for a little bit. I'm not saying for an incredible amount of time, but he
Corey
has the
Perry.
ability to do it. Yeah, and obviously the angry Connor McDavid. I mean, you saw last year what happened after the Cup final, Game 7. He was devastated. He was devastated. And, I mean, you would like to see at the beginning of the season after that happening that they come out swinging. But that wasn't really the chance. But thankfully they got to the point where they can get it this year. And I don't know. We'll see if we do. But on the side of the Panthers, I think it's never a wrong answer. Never, ever a wrong answer to go with Sam Reinhart.
No, yeah.
He is an incredible goal scorer, and I think he has the ability to change games. He is that wicked wrister from the slot that can go under the glove, under the blocker. Beautiful shot. And I also think more offensively you need to get Tkachuk involved because he's more capable of scoring than he's been showing the past round. And I think he can be a major difference maker. And I think even a team like Edmonton, who has crazy offense, I think they could maybe get a game or two where they blow them out completely. I mean, Edmonton did them to the Panthers Game 6 last year, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think similar to what everyone else is saying. I'll start with the Florida side first. I think Kachuk's going to be a huge impact player for Florida. I think it's already been brought up the Four Nations face-off with McDavid. Kachuk is coming off a loss in that regard. McDavid's coming off a Stanley Cup loss, but a Four Nations face-off win. I'd have to think that's on the mind of Kachuk a little bit to want to get payback in that regard. And I think he's the energy player for Florida. I think he's the kind of guy they rally around. I think him keeping composure, but also not being afraid to stand up for people will be a big impact. I think penalty minutes could be, you don't want Edmonton on the power play. So knowing when it's a time to push back and knowing when it's a time to keep it clean, I think will be a huge part for Kachuk, but they rally behind him. And I think having him not only impact on the score sheet, but also just his leadership. And I think for the same reasons for McDavid, last year you saw the passion for McDavid. And I almost feel like the rest of his team didn't match his passion or intensity. I think in order for them to win, the passion and the intensity is going to be there for McDavid. He wants it, especially coming off a loss now, wants it even more. I also think Edmonton being back here in the same position as last year, it's more of a team aspect now. They all want it more. I think, not saying they didn't want it last year, but I'm thinking seeing the passion McDavid put into it last year, and I think following in that leadership role, I think McDavid can obviously still grow in his leadership role. But I think in the last playoffs and this playoffs, he's really grown in that. And I think his impact, I'm not worried about him scoring on the score sheet. I'm not worried about that in the slightest. I know since he's a big contributor, it's important that he contributes, but I expect that at this point. So I think the bigger aspect for him will be the leadership side of thing, and like being able to get the intensity not only from himself but from the whole team. Yeah, and I mentioned the Four Nations face-off for Kachuk and for McDavid. I think that, like, going into the viewership side of things for this Cup Finals, obviously as hockey fans, we want to see hockey grow. We want to see hockey get bigger. You care about the viewership. Four Nations Face Off was a huge success. Um, Playoff numbers, Stanley Cup final numbers have been down. Their 2019 was the last like highest, and since then it's been only Florida teams in the Cup since 2020. Lightning 3 years and then Florida 3 years, which I don't know if that affects viewership at all or anything. COVID's thrown in there as well, but I think in order for this year to be successful, I think the Cup needs to be what Four Nations Face Off was, and I think it can be. I think if Edmonton responds to the physicality we know Florida's going to bring, you're going to have the same intensity that you had in those Four Nation Face-Off games, and that's what people want to see. So I think from a hockey fan standpoint, whether it goes like 5 games, 6 games, 7 games, what you want to see is that effort, that intensity, and I think the viewership will be there, and people want to see that.
I mean, yeah, we've highlighted the physicality a lot, and yeah, Connor McDavid had a great Four Nations face-off, game-winning goal for Canada, and Matthew Tkachuk, disappointing end to his Four Nations face-off, and this is a rematch. I think you're going to see a lot of physicality from the both of them, and yeah, like you said, that's what fans want to see, and that's what I think is guaranteed to see. I mean, the storylines are there. We have all the storylines right in front of us. Matthew Tkachuk losing in the Four Nations face-off. Connor McDavid wanting this from last year, losing in the Stanley Cup final. And angry Connor McDavid, like we've been talking about, is not something to be messed with. Matthew Tkachuk, I'm sure, will have a great series. Storylines are all there. I think the viewership will be there. I think the physicality will be there. It's going to be a really fun series to watch.
So I think it's time for our ultimate predictions. Everyone's hinted at which way they can see this series tilting based on different scenarios. But now everyone's going to give their final predictions of what they think is actually going to happen. We can start with Nathaniel.
Okay. My honest answer right now is I have no clue. I mean, if you look at the season, the Panthers were objectively the better team. Like, they play an all-around game. The past few years, they've been this way. And, I mean, a team that has been in the playoffs, I understand that the Oilers were in last year, but 3 years in a row, the amount of playoff experience these guys have is insane. And I mean, I wish I had a quarter for every single time we said physicality, but physicality, the way they play, it's just overwhelming. But I wish I could say that's the only factor. McDavid and Draisaitl are going to be sour from last year's loss, and they are going to make sure that not only they try, but all of their teammates not only act like it's the Stanley Cup Finals, because that's a big thing in and of itself, but that they work to get back to the place they were last year, and they need to win this year. So I'm just looking forward to the competition. You want my prediction or who I want to win? Because who I want to win, I'll say it straight up, I want the Panthers to win. But can they? That is the question.
Can we get a straight answer at all?
I'm trying. I can't because I'm so afraid to be wrong because both of the teams have the potential. They just do. And it doesn't come down to one deciding factor. Like Luke was saying earlier, it's a team game, and the thing to watch is going to be the mistakes. If anyone makes a mistake defensively, on Florida, they're going to pay for it. You can't make a mistake with Draisaitl and McDavid on the ice and not pay for it. So to appease you, I'll say the Panthers. Okay? You happy? You happy?
All right. So, oh man, this I think is guaranteed to be a fun series. I see it going to 6 or 7 games. No pun intended. I can see Edmonton winning in 6. I can see Florida winning in 6. I can see Edmonton winning in 7. I can see Florida winning in 7. It's going to be such a fun series. All of the stuff we've highlighted, those are going to be the storylines. How those play out is what we're going to see. I think my pick is going to be Edmonton in 7. I do think they have the drive and will put it together in this finals. Even without Zach Hyman, I think we'll see a Stuart Skinner that we haven't seen very often here in the playoffs. And this might be a biased pick, to be honest. I want to see a Canadian team hoist that cup. Hasn't happened since 1993. Take the Gary Bettman curse off of it. I'm going Edmonton all the way. 6 or 7 games. I see Connor McDavid having another MVP performance. And Stuart Skinner staying lights out like he did in the Dallas series. And I see them taking the series.
I also agree that it will be a very tight series. Definitely 6 or 7 games. And I also agree that Edmonton will take it. And my reasoning behind this is Stuart Skinner is looking pretty good right now. Just the entire team is functioning at a good. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's working together. We saw it in that Dallas series. They're a good team right now, and I think they want revenge, and I think they want it more. And I think just that alone, and just how they've been functioning as a team lately, I think they've got it.
You really put me in a tight spot, brothers. You're both all of you guys are making good points. I'll say this. I didn't think the Florida Panthers would make the cup this year. I didn't see it as I didn't
Get
see
out of
them.
here. Get out of here. No.
I didn't see them as good a team as they were last year. Not as dominant, even after the Marchand trade. Did not see them as dominant, and I did not think that they were going to be the same team this year. And I was proved wrong. They were really good in the playoffs and totally proved themselves to be repeat material. With that being said, I didn't see any differences in Edmonton's game from last year. I knew that they were going to make it this far. That's pretty bold, but I knew that they were going to make a deep run, if not make it to the Cup final again, because they didn't really make a lot of off-season changes to the same extent that Florida did. And they did not have as rough of a season as they did last year either. Again, with that being said, I 100%, okay, not 100%, but the Florida Panthers are going to win this again. I'm saying it now. The Florida Panthers will win this cup. The Edmonton Oilers have the players that they need. Unfortunately, that chemistry is there some games and isn't there others. And the Florida Panthers are going to feed off of that. Because the second you have one thing go wrong against the Florida Panthers, you lose your head, and the Oilers are very vulnerable to that. A great example would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Boom, out to a 2-0 series lead. Florida looked totally helpless. And then, boom, a switch flipped. Toronto made a couple of mistakes in Game 3, and the rest is history. Sure, it went as many games as it did, but after Game 2, Florida totally turned it around and just was like, all right, we're not going to let any more of this go around. We're going to finish this. And they did. And so I am not totally positive that Florida is going to win this series, but I highly doubt that Edmonton cannot make that one big mistake that gives Florida the upper hand. So I'm definitely choosing the Florida Panthers to be the repeat Stanley Cup finalists and Stanley Cup champions.
All right, so to wrap it up, I'm very torn in this series as well. As Levi said too, I'd like to see the Oilers win. I'd like to think that McDavid is enough to push them over the finish line this year. Um, but I do think that Florida has the upper hand in the current scenario, with the health of the team going into it, and we've said it a million times. Physicality, I think, favors Florida and will be a huge factor in this series. Um, but I do think that if Edmonton can get it to a game 7, it's their serious win. I think Edmonton, despite not having the physicality, I think is better suited for a longer series, with the caliber of offense they have. And game 7 being in Edmonton, I don't see them losing that game. Um, so I will admit I thought Carolina could beat Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals and was very wrong.
A lot of people did.
And I thought they could still, despite not matching up with the physicality, I thought Carolina could still pull it off, and I was very wrong. I want to say the same thing about Edmonton. So I could be very wrong once again, but I'm going to say Oilers in 7. If Florida's winning, they need to win in 5 or 6. But I'm going to say Edmonton in 7 games. I'm going to say McDavid is enough to push them to the finish line, and I think all they need from Skinner is to play like he did in Dallas, and the offense will be there. So, yeah, I'm going to say Oilers in 7.
Drop your predictions down in the comments. We want to know what you think.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, explanations. Explain why you think. We'll comment on every single one.
I think, yeah, just now we can kind of wrap things up. Very even in the predictions. I mean, and I think that's going to show in the series. I think it's going to be a really fun series. We've gone over all the storylines, all the big things to track. I'm just going to go a little plug on the Edmonton Oilers again. If Stuart Skinner keeps playing like he was in the Dallas series, he's on a hot streak. And this high-powered offense, I think they can get over the hump of Florida's physicality. And I think they can respond with physicality too. But overall, in my opinion, I think the high-powered offense of Edmonton Oilers is going to be too much for the physicality of the Florida Panthers. It's going to be a very fun series to watch. Can't emphasize that enough. Definitely tune in.
I think, as Nathaniel said, we'd love to hear in the comments your predictions. Also, drop any video ideas. The plan for this podcast is to do a lot in this upcoming off season. So comment below any teams you'd like us to do a podcast on. We'll be covering free agency. We'll hopefully cover the draft as well. But drop any suggestions in the comments, and then for sure your predictions for the Cup final. And yeah, we'd love to hear feedback and just also where you're watching from, and yeah, what you think will happen in the Cup final after this big deep dive, whether us saying changed any minds or not. Drop below in the comments what you guys think.
I mean, I hate to say it, but Dallas has talent. Dallas has physicality. They might not be as well put together of a system as Florida, but they have those components, and they got smoked. So, let's see. Thanks for tuning in on this first episode of Gary's Basement. Signing off. We'll see you boys later. Peace.